Millionaire CEO husband texted his wife he's busy at work and won't be back home early for her birthday. And she caught him with his secretary. The office was dark except for one light spilling from the corner suite. Vivian pushed the door open, and the scene before her stopped her heart. Her husband sat on the leather couch, his arm wrapped around a woman with auburn hair. Diana Graves, his executive assistant, the woman he had sworn meant nothing to him. Marcus looked up, his face shifting from surprise to cold calculation. "Vivian, what are you doing here? I got your text, the one that said you were too busy with an investor meeting to come home for my birthday." Vivian's voice was ice. "But I see the only investment happening here is in your secretary's lingerie." Diana scrambled to create distance between herself and Marcus, straightening her blouse with trembling hands. "Mrs. Ashford, this is not what it looks like." Vivian laughed, but there was no humor in the sound. "Really? Because it looks like my husband of 12 years is sleeping with his assistant on my 40th birthday. Tell me, Diana, what exactly am I misunderstanding?" Marcus stood up, adjusting his tie with the same casual arrogance he brought to boardroom negotiations. "You are being dramatic. We were just discussing the quarterly projections." At 9 o'clock at night, on her lap, Vivian stepped closer, her eyes never leaving his face. "I heard everything, Marcus. Every single word." His expression flickered for just a moment. "What do you mean, everything?" "I mean the part where you told her you are going to leave me after the Nexus acquisition closes." Vivian watched the color drain from his face. "And the part where you said you can finally take credit for my algorithm, the one I designed, the one that built this entire company." Marcus's jaw tightened. "You do not know what you are talking about." "I know exactly what I am talking about. I'm a computational linguist. Pattern recognition is literally what I do. Did you really think I would not notice my own husband stealing my life's work?" The silence that followed was deafening. Diana was already edging toward the door, recognizing a sinking ship when she saw one. And then Marcus said the words that would change everything. "Those records do not exist anymore, Vivian. I made sure of that years ago. It is your word against the industry's perception. And the industry perceives me as the genius who built Ashford Technologies from the ground up." Vivian smiled. It was the kind of smile that made powerful men nervous. "You think you erased everything? You think in 12 years I never made copies, never kept my own documentation?" She turned and walked toward the door, pausing just long enough to deliver her final words. "Enjoy your quarterly projections, Marcus. The next time we speak, it will be through lawyers. What would you do if you discovered that the man you had given everything to, your career, your dreams, your very identity, was not only sleeping with another woman, but had been stealing credit for your life's work for over a decade? Have you ever loved someone so completely that you forgot what it felt like to be yourself? Have you ever looked in the mirror and wondered where the ambitious, brilliant person you used to be had gone? Every single day, women are told to support their husbands, to step back so he can step forward, to be the silent partner behind the successful man. But what happens when that support becomes erasure? When your contributions become his achievements? When your sacrifice becomes his stepping stone? Stay with me until the end, because this is not just a story of betrayal. This is a story of the most spectacular reclamation you will ever witness. This is the story of a woman who discovered that her husband's lies had one fatal flaw. He underestimated her intelligence. Before we dive in, I want to ask you something. Have you ever been underestimated? Have you ever had someone take credit for your work or make you feel invisible? Drop a comment below and tell me about it. And if you believe that the truth always comes to light, hit that like button right now. Let us get into this story. 4 hours earlier, Vivian Mercer stood in the kitchen of their Back Bay brownstone, putting the final touches on a dinner she had been preparing since noon. The counter was dusted with flour from the homemade pasta she had rolled out by hand. 2 filet mignons rested on the cutting board, perfectly seasoned and ready for the cast iron skillet. The champagne chilled in a silver ice bucket that had been a wedding gift 12 years ago. She had set the table with their finest crystal, the stemware they had received at their wedding. Candles arranged just so, fresh flowers from the florist on Newbury Street, the one Marcus always said was overpriced but that she loved anyway. Vivian checked her reflection in the window above the sink. She had spent an hour on her hair and makeup. The dress she wore was new, purchased specifically for tonight. Emerald green silk that brought out the warmth in her brown skin and the light in her dark eyes. 40 years old today. She was supposed to be celebrating with her husband, A quiet dinner at home before the surprise party her sister had been planning for weeks. She was supposed to feel cherished. Instead, she felt invisible. Her phone buzzed on the counter. Vivian's heart lifted for just a moment, hoping it was Marcus saying he was on his way, that he had gotten away from the office early after all, that he remembered what today meant. The text message glowed on the screen. Working late tonight. Big investor meeting ran over. Do not wait up. Happy birthday. M. 12 words. 12 words for 12 years of marriage. No, I love you. No, I will make it up to you. No mention of the dinner reservations they had canceled because he said he wanted something more intimate. Just a cold corporate dismissal wrapped in the thin veil of professional obligation. Vivian stared at the message until the screen went dark. Then she looked at the perfectly set table, the candles flickering, the champagne going warm in its bucket. Something inside her shifted. Not broke exactly, more like a door that had been locked for years suddenly creaking open to reveal a truth she had been too afraid to see. When had she become this woman? This ghost who haunted her own life? The shadow of someone else's expectations rather than the person she was meant to be. She thought about the charity events she organized because it was expected of a CEO's wife. The dinner parties where she smiled until her face ached. The conferences where she stood beside Marcus in designer dresses, nodding at appropriate moments while he accepted awards for innovations she had created. She thought about her PhD from MIT, her research that had been cited in academic journals, the algorithm she had developed that had become the foundation of every product Ashford Technologies had ever released. She thought about how she had given it all up because Marcus had convinced her that the company needed her to be present at home, that she was more valuable as a support system than a scientist. She thought about Diana Graves, the executive assistant with the calculated smile and the ambitious eyes who had been working late with Marcus more and more often over the past year. And suddenly, Vivian knew what she had to do. She did not remember driving to Ashford Technologies. The 20-minute journey passed in a blur of streetlights and desperate thoughts. She only remembered parking in the underground garage and taking the private elevator that Marcus had installed specifically for family access. Family, another word that had become meaningless. The executive floor was quiet at this hour. Most employees had gone home to their own families, their own dinners, their own lives. Only the cleaning crew remained, pushing carts through darkened hallways. Roberto nodded at her as she passed. She had always made a point of learning the staff's names, treating them like people rather than furniture. Evening, Mrs. Ashford. Late night for Mr. A tonight. So I have heard. Vivian's voice was steadier than she felt. She made her way down the corridor toward Marcus's corner office, the one with the floor-to-ceiling windows and the view of the Boston skyline, the one that had been decorated with awards and magazine covers featuring her husband's face. The light was on, spilling gold into the darkened hallway. As she approached, she heard something that made her stop cold. Laughter, a woman's laughter, followed by Marcus's deep chuckle, the intimate sound he used to reserve for her alone. You are impossible. The female voice was playful, teasing. Marcus, we cannot keep doing this. Someone is going to find out. Let them. Marcus's voice was confident, dismissive. Diana, I am going to leave her. After the Nexus acquisition closes, I will have the resources to manage a clean separation. Vivian gets her settlement, I get my freedom, and we can finally stop hiding. Vivian's hand found the doorframe. The world tilted around her. Her heart hammered so hard she could feel it in her throat. She inched closer to the door, which was slightly ajar, just enough for her to see through the gap without being seen. Marcus sat on the leather couch, his tie loosened, his arm around Diana Graves. She looked exactly as Vivian had imagined in her worst nightmares. Auburn hair perfectly styled, expensive dress that clung to every curve, manicured fingers trailing across Marcus's chest with possessive familiarity. And the company. Diana's voice was casual, calculating. The board will not like the scandal. The board will love our revenue numbers. Marcus pulled her closer. And once Vivian is out of the picture, I can finally take credit for the Nexus algorithm. The whole world thinks I am the technical genius behind this company. Why would that change? Vivian felt her blood turn to ice. The Nexus algorithm. Her algorithm. The one she had designed in their tiny apartment when they were just starting out. The one she had tested and refined through countless sleepless nights. the one that had become the foundation of a billion-dollar empire. Did she not design that originally? Diana asked with casual cruelty. Marcus laughed. It was the sound of a man who had gotten away with something for so long he no longer feared consequences. Vivian contributed some early concepts, but the real innovation came from my team. She was always more supportive than substantive. Good hostess, loyal wife, but not exactly the brightest mind in the room. The words cut through Vivian like surgical steel, precise, devastating. Everything she had given up, her career, her identity, her dreams, reduced to supportive rather than substantive. Good hostess, loyal wife. The man she had loved for 15 years had just dismissed her entire existence as an inconvenient footnote in his success story. Something inside Vivian snapped, but it was not her heart breaking. It was something else entirely, something she had buried so deep she had forgotten it existed. Her spine, she stood up straight, took a breath, and pushed the door open with more force than necessary. The look on their faces was worth every moment of pain she had ever suffered. Marcus and Diana scrambled apart like teenagers caught by disapproving parents. Diana was already reaching for her discarded blazer. Marcus was on his feet, smoothing his shirt with hands that were not quite steady. Vivian. His voice cracked on her name. What are you doing here? I told you I would be late. Working on an investor meeting. Yes, I read your text. Vivian stepped into the room, her heels clicking against the marble floor. I did not realize investors had started wearing La Perla and sitting on your lap. Diana had the grace to look uncomfortable. Mrs. Ashford, this is not what it looks like. Please do not insult what is left of my intelligence. Vivian turned to face Marcus fully, seeing him clearly for the first time in years. The expensive suit, the practiced smile, the hollow eyes of a man who had traded his soul for success. You were saying something about taking credit for my algorithm. I would love to hear more about that. Marcus's expression shifted from surprise to calculation. He had always been quick to assess a situation, to find the angle that worked in his favor. You heard that? Every word, including the part where you were planning to leave me after the acquisition closes. Very thoughtful of you to wait for maximum financial extraction before discarding me. Always the strategist. Viv, let me explain. Explain what? Vivian's voice rose with 12 years of suppressed frustration. That you have been sleeping with your secretary, that you have been claiming my work as your own, that our entire marriage has been a carefully managed performance while you built your exit strategy. She stepped closer, watching him flinch. He had never seen her like this, the obedient wife who smiled at appropriate moments and never caused scenes. That woman was gone now. I have been making excuses for you for years. Missing anniversaries, canceled vacations, the way you look at me like I am furniture. I told myself you were stressed, overworked, focused on building our future. She laughed, but there was no humor in the sound. But there is no our future, is there? There never was. You have just been using me. My work, my loyalty, my willingness to fade into the background, while you played the brilliant CEO and built yourself a monument to mediocrity. Marcus's face hardened, the mask of the concerned husband slipping away to reveal the calculating businessman beneath. Now wait just a minute. Everything I have built, everything you have built. Vivian cut him off with a sharp gesture. Marcus, the core algorithm that powers every Ashford product came from my dissertation research. I have drafts, documentation, lab notebooks. I have emails from 2014 where you asked me to explain my own code to your engineers because you did not understand it. Marcus smiled. It was cold and confident and absolutely infuriating. Those records do not exist anymore. He adjusted his cufflinks with casual dismissiveness. I made sure of that years ago. No digital trail, no paper trail. It is your word against the industry's perception. And the industry perceives me as the genius who built Ashford Technologies from the ground up. Diana was already edging toward the door, her survival instincts clearly sharper than her moral compass. Vivian watched her go without comment, then turned back to her husband with an expression that made him take a step backward. You think you erased everything? She asked quietly. You think in 12 years I never made copies, never kept my own documentation? She watched the first flicker of uncertainty cross his face. I am a computational linguist, Marcus. Pattern recognition is literally what I do. Did you really think I would not notice my own husband slowly stealing my life's work? You are bluffing. Try me." The silence stretched between them. Marcus studied her face, looking for the crack in her armor, the weakness he could exploit, the leverage he could use. He found nothing but cold determination. "Even if you have something," his voice had lost some of its confidence, "no one will believe you. The whole industry knows my name, my face, my story. You are just the CEO's wife." Vivian smiled. It was the smile of a woman who had finally stopped being afraid. "You know what I find fascinating about pattern recognition, Marcus? It works on human behavior too. I have spent the last 3 years watching you, documenting your lies, building a case that would hold up in any court in the country. 3 years. 3 years. While you thought I was planning charity galas and shopping for designer dresses, I was consulting with intellectual property lawyers, gathering evidence, preparing for exactly this moment." Marcus's face went pale. "You cannot prove anything. I can prove everything." Vivian walked toward the door, then paused. "My attorney's name is Margot Chen. You will be hearing from her in the morning. I suggest you find yourself a very good lawyer." "Vivian, wait." His voice had shifted again, softer now, pleading. "Let us talk about this. There has to be something we can work out." "There is nothing to work out. We are finished. The marriage is over, and when I am done, the whole world will know who really built this company." She opened the door, stepped into the hallway, and delivered her final words without looking back. "Happy anniversary of the biggest mistake of your life, Marcus. That is the woman you married, and that is the woman who is going to destroy you. To understand how we got here, we need to go back to the beginning, to a time when Vivian Mercer was not a silent partner or a trophy wife, to a time when she was exactly who she was meant to be." Massachusetts Institute of Technology, Ketezer Kilinsedik. The lab was quiet at 2 in the morning, lit only by the blue glow of computer monitors and the desk lamp Vivian had brought from home because the overhead fluorescence gave her headaches. She sat hunched over her keyboard, lines of code streaming across her screen, her coffee long since gone cold. Around her, empty pizza boxes and crumpled papers told the story of a woman consumed by her work. Vivian was 28 years old, 3 years into her PhD program in computational linguistics. She was brilliant. Everyone said so. Her professors, her peers, the academic journals that had already published 3 of her papers. But more than brilliant, she was driven, obsessed with the patterns hidden in language, the mathematical structures, underlying human communication. She saw things other people missed, connections that seemed obvious to her but invisible to everyone else. The algorithm she was developing, the one that would eventually become the foundation of Ashford Technologies, was her masterpiece. A new approach to natural language processing that could revolutionize how computers understood and generated human speech. You know, most people sleep at night. Vivian jumped, nearly knocking over her cold coffee. She spun around to find a man standing in the doorway of the lab, holding 2 steaming cups. He was tall, with dark hair and gray eyes that seemed to assess everything they looked at. His MIT sweatshirt was rumpled, his jeans worn at the knees. But there was something about the way he carried himself. Confident, assured, like he already knew he was going to be successful and was just waiting for the world to catch up. Marcus Ashford, MBA candidate, 2 years ahead of her in the business program. She had seen him around campus, heard the rumors about his family money and his ambition. He was the kind of man other men wanted to be and women wanted to be with. He was also apparently the kind of man who wandered into computer labs at 2 in the morning carrying coffee. "I brought a peace offering." He held up one of the cups. Figured anyone working this late could use some caffeine that was not 8 hours old. Vivian looked at her cold coffee, then at the fresh cup he was offering. "How do you know I work this late?" "I have been watching you." He smiled at her alarmed expression. "That came out wrong. I mean, I have noticed you. In the innovation seminar, Professor Walsh's class, you asked a question about pattern recognition in financial markets that made him completely rethink his lecture. You were in that class, back row, too intimidated to introduce myself to the woman who made a Nobel laureate stutter." Vivian felt herself smiling despite her exhaustion. "Professor Walsh is not a Nobel laureate, not yet, but he will be. And so will you, if this algorithm of yours works the way you described in your last paper." She stared at him. "You read my paper. I read everything interesting. And your work on computational linguistics is the most interesting thing I have encountered at MIT, including my own classes." He set the coffee on her desk and pulled up a chair without asking permission. So tell me about it. In terms a business student can understand. What makes your algorithm different from everything else out there? And that was how it started. They talked until sunrise, Vivian explaining her research while Marcus asked questions that revealed a surprisingly sharp mind behind the MBA polish. He understood the business implications of her work in ways she had never considered. The commercial applications, the market potential, the possibility of building something bigger than an academic paper. By the time the morning light was streaming through the lab windows, they had outlined the skeleton of what would become Ashford Technologies. We could build something amazing together, Marcus said, his eyes bright with possibility. Your technical brilliance, my business sense, partners in everything. Partners. The word had meant something then. Over the next 2 years, they built the company from nothing. Late nights in their tiny apartment, debugging code and drafting business plans. Cold pizza and cheaper wine. Arguments about strategy that turned into debates that turned into something deeper. Marcus was charming, attentive, endlessly enthusiastic about her work. He introduced her to investors as his brilliant co-founder. He deferred to her expertise in every technical meeting. He made her feel like the most important person in every room. When he proposed, it was with a ring he could barely afford and a speech about building an empire together. Vivian said yes without hesitation. Their wedding was small, held in the MIT chapel with their professors and classmates in attendance. Vivian's mother cried. Marcus's parents maintained polite distance, their old money sensibilities, slightly offended by their son's choice of a bride who worked for a living. But none of that mattered. What mattered was the promise they made to each other, for better or worse, in sickness and in health, partners in everything. The company grew faster than either of them had anticipated. Vivian's algorithm attracted attention from tech giants and venture capitalists alike. Within 3 years, Ashford Technologies was valued at $50 million. Within 5 years, $500 million. And somewhere in that growth, something started to change. It happened so gradually that Vivian almost did not notice. A slow erosion of everything they had built together. The first product launch in 2013. Marcus presenting alone while Vivian watched from the audience. You are so much better behind the scenes, Viv, he had said when she asked about it. The investors want to see a strong, singular vision. It is just optics, the industry profiles that featured only Marcus's face. The rebranding from Mercer Ashford Technologies to just Ashford Technologies. Your name is harder to pronounce, he had explained. This is just simpler for marketing purposes. It does not change anything about our partnership. The board meetings she stopped being invited to. They are getting more technical, more business-focused, he had said. I do not want to waste your time with things that are not in your wheelhouse. Her wheelhouse? As if the technical foundation of the entire company was not her creation. And then the pregnancy, the hope that maybe a family would bring them closer together, the devastating miscarriage at 14 weeks that shattered something inside her. Marcus had been supportive at first, holding her while she cried, canceling meetings to be home with her, saying all the right things. But then the doctor's news, complications that made future pregnancy unlikely. And Marcus's reaction had been subtle but unmistakable. A distance that crept into his eyes, a coolness in his touch. Maybe this is a sign, he had said one evening, not quite meeting her gaze, that you should focus on the home front. Take some time for yourself. I can handle things at the office. Take some time for yourself. The most devastating dismissal disguised as compassion. And Vivian, broken and grieving and desperate to hold on to something, had believed him. She stepped back from the company she had helped create. She became the CEO's wife instead of the CEO founder. She organized charity events and hosted dinner parties and smiled at investors and slowly, gradually disappeared. Let me pause here for a moment. How many of you have seen this pattern before? Someone you trusted slowly taking credit for your ideas, your work, your contributions. It happens more than we want to admit. If this story is resonating with you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And drop a comment. Have you ever felt like you were being erased from your own story? Let us keep going. The manipulation had names. Vivian learned them later, when she finally started researching what had happened to her marriage. What had happened to her? Gaslighting. The way Marcus rewrote their history until she doubted her own memories. You are remembering that wrong, Viv. The algorithm was always a team effort. You contributed concepts, but the real innovation came from the engineering team. Minimizing, the casual dismissal of everything she had accomplished. Your early work was important, of course, but the company has evolved so far beyond that initial foundation. Isolating, the slow cutting off from everyone who might have validated her contributions. The tech conferences made her uncomfortable. The industry colleagues were Marcus's contacts now. The MIT reunions conflicted with events he needed her to attend. Financial control disguised as protection. I will handle the investments, darling. You should not have to worry about numbers. The charity work that kept her busy but invisible. The social calendar that filled her days with meaningless obligations. The gradual transformation from partner to prop. And through it all, Marcus's public persona grew larger while Vivian faded into the background. He accepted awards she should have shared. He gave interviews about his innovative vision. He graced magazine covers with headlines about the genius behind the tech revolution. And Vivian stood beside him in designer dresses, smiling on command. Her name reduced to a footnote. Marcus Ashford, pictured with his wife. Diana Graves arrived in 2018. Vivian remembered the moment she met her. A company reception at the Brownstone, the kind of event Vivian organized flawlessly 4 times a year. Diana had walked in on Marcus's arm, introduced as his new executive assistant. Harvard MBA, 5 years experience at Goldman Sachs. Impeccable references. She was beautiful in a calculated way. Every hair in place, every gesture practiced. The kind of woman who knew exactly what she wanted and had mapped out the path to get it. Mrs. Ashford. Diana had smiled, but it did not reach her eyes. Marcus speaks so highly of you. He says you are the perfect hostess. Vivian had felt something uncomfortable in that moment. A flicker of recognition. Not of Diana herself, but of what she represented. Prey recognizing predator. But she had dismissed it. Told herself she was being paranoid. That not every beautiful woman who worked closely with her husband was a threat. Over the months that followed, Diana became more and more integrated into Marcus's professional life. Late nights at the office, weekend strategy sessions, business trips where she was the only staff member who traveled with him. And Marcus came home later and later, distracted, distant, looking at Vivian with barely concealed contempt when she asked about his day. The perfume was what Vivian noticed first. A scent she did not recognize. Something expensive and floral, clinging to his collar when he finally came home. She told herself it was nothing, that she was imagining things, that 12 years of marriage meant something. But the locked phone told a different story. The changed passwords, the credit card statements that did not add up, the receipt for a diamond tennis bracelet that Vivian never received. The awakening happened gradually, small realizations accumulating into an undeniable truth. Marcus was having an affair. That much was almost bearable, almost something she could have confronted, worked through, maybe even forgiven. But it was more than that. A chance encounter at a fundraiser changed everything. Dr. Yuki Tanaka, Vivian's former PhD advisor from MIT, now one of the most respected figures in computational linguistics. Vivian, my dear. Dr. Tanaka had embraced her warmly. I was just reading about Ashford Technology's latest patent filing. Fascinating work. Thank you. Vivian had smiled the automatic smile of a CEO's wife. I always wondered what happened to your research. Dr. Tanaka's expression had shifted to something more probing. Your dissertation work on natural language processing. It seemed so promising. I expected to see your name on the publications. Vivian had felt something cold settle in her stomach. My research. Yes, the algorithm you were developing, the one you presented at your defense. Dr. Tanaka had paused, studying her face. You do know that the foundational architecture of your husband's most successful products bears a remarkable resemblance to your doctoral work. The room had tilted slightly. Vivian had made some excuse, some graceful exit, and found herself in the bathroom, gripping the sink and staring at her reflection. The woman in the mirror was a stranger, a ghost, a shadow of someone who had once been brilliant and driven and full of promise. And in that moment, Vivian Mercer began to wake up. The research started small, a quiet investigation into Ashford Technology's patent filings, the documentation that should have borne her name as CO inventor. What she found horrified her. Her name had been systematically removed from everything. Patents filed under Marcus's name alone, technical documents rewritten to obscure her contributions, a paper trail that had been carefully, deliberately erased. She found old emails, correspondence from the early years where Marcus had asked her to explain her own code to his engineers, where he had admitted he did not understand the technical details, where he had called her his brilliant partner. Those emails still existed on servers Marcus did not know about, on backup drives he had forgotten she maintained. The scope of the theft was staggering. Not just one algorithm, but years of her work, her innovations, her intellectual property, all of it rebranded, repackaged, and presented to the world as the genius of Marcus Ashford. Vivian had not confronted him. Not immediately, because she understood something Marcus never had. Pattern recognition was about more than algorithms. It was about understanding systems, predicting behavior, identifying the optimal moment to act, and if she was going to take down her husband, she needed to do it right. The first call was to attorney Margot Chen. Margot was a legend in intellectual property law, a fierce advocate who had built her reputation on cases involving women whose contributions had been stolen, minimized, or erased. She listened to Vivian's story without interruption. Then she leaned back in her chair and smiled. "Mrs. Ashford, I have been waiting for a case like this my entire career." They built the case methodically, gathering evidence, documenting discrepancies, preparing for battle. Vivian continued to play the perfect CEO's wife, attending events on Marcus's arm, smiling for cameras, pretending nothing had changed. It was the hardest thing she had ever done. Watching Marcus accept an innovation award for work she had created, listening to him give speeches about his vision for the future of technology, reading articles that praised his genius while she stood invisible at his side. But she was not invisible anymore. She was watching, documenting, preparing. Dr. Tanaka agreed to provide expert testimony about the similarity between Vivian's doctoral work and Ashford Technology's foundational patents. Former colleagues came forward with memories of the early days, when Vivian was the one writing the code while Marcus was the one writing the checks. The evidence mounted, an airtight case that would destroy everything Marcus had built on her stolen work. And through it all, her sister Renata was her lifeline. "Are you sure about this?" Renata had asked during one of their late-night strategy sessions. "Once you do this, there is no going back. Your whole life is going to change." "My whole life already changed," Vivian had replied. "I just did not realize it until now." "What about Marcus? Do you still love him?" The question had stopped her cold. "I love who he used to be, or who I thought he was, but that person either never existed or died a long time ago. What is left is just a man who saw me as something to use and discard, and you can live with destroying him." Vivian had been quiet for a long moment. "I am not going to destroy him, Renata. I am going to tell the truth. If that destroys him, that is a consequence of his own choices." The last piece of evidence came by accident. Vivian found documents on Marcus's computer indicating that he had been planning his exit strategy for years. Financial arrangements designed to minimize what she would receive in a divorce, legal structures that would protect his assets, and something else, something that made her blood run cold. Consultations with a psychiatrist about having Vivian declared mentally incompetent, notes about erratic behavior that did not exist, a paper trail designed to discredit her if she ever tried to challenge him. He was not just planning to leave her, he was planning to destroy her reputation so thoroughly that no one would believe a word she said. The urgency increased. She had to act soon, before he could execute his plan. And then October 14th arrived, her 40th birthday. She had prepared one last dinner, a test, an opportunity for Marcus to prove that some part of their marriage still meant something. The text message had been his answer. "Working late tonight. Big investor meeting ran over. Do not wait up. Happy birthday." Vivian had read those words and felt the last thread of hope snap. She drove to his office with evidence in her car, documentation on a flash drive in her purse, her attorney's number programmed into her phone. She had planned to confront him, to deliver her ultimatum, to begin the process of reclaiming her life, but catching him with Diana, hearing him dismiss her as more supportive than substantive, watching him smile as he talked about taking credit for her work that had not been part of the plan, that had been fate giving her exactly what she needed. The final piece of evidence, the motivation to follow through. Sometimes the universe provides. And now, as Vivian drove home from Ashford Technologies with Diana's perfume still lingering, in her memory and Marcus's cruel words echoing in her mind, she knew exactly what she had to do. Tomorrow, the real battle would begin. The press conference was scheduled for 9 in the morning, 2 weeks after the confrontation. Vivian stood backstage at the Four Seasons Ballroom, reviewing her notes one final time. The room beyond was packed with journalists, tech industry analysts, and curious observers who had been promised a major announcement. No one knew what was coming. Not the media, not the public, not Marcus, who was probably just waking up in the brownstone still, confident that his carefully constructed lies would protect him. "You are ready for this." Vivian looked up to find Margot Chen beside her, impeccably dressed in a power suit that meant business. "Ready as I will ever be. Remember, let me handle the legal questions. You just tell your story. The truth is on your side." Vivian nodded. She thought about the woman she had been 2 weeks ago. Invisible, defeated, convinced that she was exactly as insignificant as her husband had made her feel. That woman was gone now. In her place stood someone she barely recognized. Stronger, clearer, ready to fight for what was hers. "It is time," Margot said. They walked out onto the stage together. The flash of cameras was blinding. The murmur of the crowd rose and fell like waves. Vivian stepped up to the microphone and looked out at the sea of faces. For a moment, she was terrified. The old instinct to fade into the background, to let someone else take the spotlight, to be supportive rather than substantive. Then she thought about Marcus's smirk as he called her not exactly the brightest mind in the room. And she began to speak. "Good morning. My name is Dr. Vivian Mercer. Many of you know me as the wife of Marcus Ashford, CEO of Ashford Technologies. Today, I am here to tell you a different story. The true story of how Ashford Technologies was built and the systematic theft of intellectual property that has been concealed for over a decade." The room went silent. "In 2010, I developed an algorithm for natural language processing as part of my doctoral research at MIT. That algorithm became the foundational technology of every product Ashford Technologies has ever released. My name was systematically removed from patent filings, technical documents, and company records. My contributions were erased so completely that the industry came to believe my husband was the sole genius behind the company's success." She paused, letting the words sink in. "I have spent the past 3 years documenting this theft. Today, I am filing a lawsuit against Marcus Ashford and Ashford Technologies for intellectual property fraud, breach of fiduciary duty, and unjust enrichment." The room erupted. Questions flew from every direction. Cameras flashed like strobe lights. Journalists shouted over each other, trying to get her attention. Margot stepped forward to manage the chaos, directing questions and providing legal context. But Vivian just stood there, watching the carefully constructed empire of lies begin to crumble. Across the city, Marcus Ashford was about to have a very bad morning. The headlines exploded across every platform within hours. Ashford Technologies founder files lawsuit claiming intellectual property theft and fraud. CEO Marcus Ashford faces allegations of stolen algorithm and fabricated credentials. The hidden genius behind Ashford. How one woman's work was erased from tech history. The story was everywhere. Cable news, tech blogs, social media. Everyone was talking about the CEO's wife, who had turned out to be the real brains behind the operation, and the evidence was devastating. Independent technical analysts confirmed what Vivian had always known. The code signatures in Ashford Technologies' foundational patents matched her doctoral research exactly. The timeline of development aligned with her work at MIT, not with anything Marcus had ever produced. Former employees came forward with stories about the early days, about Marcus asking Vivian to explain his own products to him, about her late nights in the lab while he was in meetings, about the gradual, systematic erasure of her contributions from company history. Dr. Tanaka provided expert testimony that made Marcus's claims of independent innovation laughable. And then Diana turned. Diana Graves, apparently recognizing that the ship was sinking, cut a deal with investigators. In exchange for immunity, she provided a treasure trove of evidence about Marcus's plans. His exit strategy, his scheme to discredit Vivian, his explicit acknowledgement in text messages and emails that he knew the algorithm was his wife's work. Marcus Ashford, once the golden boy of the tech industry, was completely and utterly exposed. The board called an emergency meeting. Investors threatened to withdraw from the pending Nexus acquisition. Legal experts appeared on cable news to discuss the criminal implications of intellectual property fraud. And Marcus, for the first time in his carefully managed career, was completely alone. The settlement negotiations happened faster than anyone expected. Marcus's legal team knew they were beaten. The evidence was overwhelming. A trial would be a public crucifixion. They met in a conference room at Margot Chen's firm. Marcus across the table from Vivian for the first time since the night of her birthday. He looked diminished. The confident CEO who had built an empire on lies was gone. In his place sat a man confronting the consequences of a decade of deception. "My client is prepared to be reasonable," his attorney said. "We would like to propose a settlement that addresses Mrs. Ashford's concerns while minimizing public exposure." Margot smiled. Dr. Mercer's concerns are not going to be addressed by a quiet settlement. She wants public acknowledgement of her contributions, fair compensation for years of stolen intellectual property, and your client's resignation as CEO. That is absurd. Marcus spoke for the first time. "I built that company. You built nothing." Vivian's voice was calm, steady. "You built a brand, a story, a very convincing lie. But the technology, the innovations, the actual work that made Ashford Technologies valuable, that was me. That was always me." Marcus stared at her, and for just a moment, something flickered in his eyes. Recognition, perhaps, of the woman he had married, the woman he had tried to erase. "Why?" he asked quietly. "Why did you wait so long? Why did you let me do this to you?" "Because I loved you," Vivian replied. "Because I believed in the partnership we promised each other. Because I trusted you." She leaned forward. "But love does not mean letting someone destroy you. And trust, once broken, cannot be rebuilt with apologies or settlements." The negotiation continued for 3 more hours. In the end, Marcus agreed to everything. Public acknowledgement of Vivian's foundational contributions to Ashford Technologies. A substantial financial settlement that reflected years of stolen intellectual property and unpaid recognition. His resignation as CEO, effective immediately. It was over. Vivian walked out of that conference room a different person than the one who had walked in. Not just vindicated, but transformed. She had fought for herself, and she had won. The weeks that followed were strange. Vivian moved out of the brownstone into a modest apartment in Cambridge. It was smaller than any place she had lived since graduate school. The furniture was second-hand, the kitchen barely functional, the view nothing spectacular. It felt more like home than the Back Bay mansion ever had. She spent her days sorting through years of accumulated possessions. The designer clothes she had bought because they were expected. The jewelry that marked anniversaries she now realized had been hollow. The photographs of a marriage that had been a performance. She kept very little. A few books, some mementos from MIT, the lab notebooks that had proven her case. Everything else she donated or discarded. The grief surprised her. Not grief for Marcus exactly, more grief for the life she had imagined. The partnership she had believed in, the future that had turned out to be a lie. She cried sometimes. Late at night when the apartment was quiet and she could not pretend to be strong, she cried for the years she had lost, the career she had sacrificed, the woman she had been before Marcus had convinced her to become someone smaller. But with the grief came something else, something that felt like possibility. The job offers started arriving within weeks of the settlement. Major tech companies wanting her expertise, universities offering distinguished professorships, research institutions with resources that would have seemed like fantasy during her struggling graduate school days. The tech industry, it turned out, was desperate to claim her now that her story was public. The woman who had been erased was suddenly the woman everyone wanted. Vivian considered her options carefully. She could have taken a corporate position, made millions, built another empire with her name on it this time. But that was not what she wanted anymore. What she wanted, she realized, was to do what Marcus had never let her do, to teach, to mentor, to help the next generation of brilliant minds avoid the mistakes she had made. She accepted a position at MIT, Distinguished Professor of Computational Linguistics, the same title her mentor Dr. Tanaka had held when Vivian was a struggling graduate student, the same lab where she had worked until 2 in the morning, developing the algorithm that would change her life. It felt like coming home. Her first day back on campus, Vivian walked through the familiar corridors of the computer science building, past the offices where she had argued with professors, past the classrooms where she had first understood her own potential, past the lab where a charming MBA student had once brought her coffee and changed the trajectory of her life. So much had changed. But the part of her that loved this work, the part that saw patterns where others saw chaos, That part was exactly the same. Dr. Mercer. She turned to find a young woman standing behind her. Early 20s, dark hair pulled back, the slightly frantic expression of a graduate student in the middle of dissertation hell. "Can I help you? I just wanted to say." The young woman paused, gathering courage. "I followed your case, the whole thing, and I wanted to tell you that you inspired me to keep going." Vivian felt something warm spread through her chest. "What are you working on?" "Natural language processing. Specifically, pattern recognition in multilingual contexts." "That sounds familiar." The young woman smiled. "I read your dissertation, the original one." Dr. Tanaka had a copy in the archive. It was the first time I understood that someone like me could do work that mattered. Vivian looked at this young woman who reminded her so much of herself at that age. Brilliant, driven, full of promise that could so easily be stolen or suppressed or erased. "Would you like to grab coffee?" Vivian asked. "I would love to hear more about your research." The young woman's face lit up. Really? Vivian smiled. "I have some time now, and I have learned that the most important conversations often happen over coffee at unexpected hours." They walked together toward the campus cafe, past the buildings where Vivian had once built. Dreams that were stolen, toward a future where she would help others protect theirs. This was who she was meant to be. Not a trophy wife, not a silent partner, not a footnote in someone else's success story. This was Dr. Vivian Mercer, scientist, teacher, mentor, and she was just getting started. The lecture hall was packed. 300 students filled every seat, with another 50 standing along the walls. They had come from departments across MIT, drawn by word of mouth about the new professor whose story had dominated headlines for months. Vivian stood at the podium, looking out at the sea of young faces. So many of them reminded her of herself at that age, hungry, ambitious, ready to change the world. She hoped they would have better luck than she had, or at least better guidance. "Welcome to Computational Linguistics 401. I am Dr. Vivian Mercer. Some of you may know me from certain recent news stories." A ripple of knowing laughter moved through the room. "What those stories do not tell you is what I am going to teach you this semester. Not just about algorithms and natural language processing, but about something far more important." She clicked to her first slide. A single word appeared on the screen behind her. "Documentation. This is the most important word you will learn in my class. More important than any algorithm, more important than any breakthrough. Because brilliant ideas mean nothing if you cannot prove they are yours." She looked out at her students, making eye contact with as many as she could. "I spent 12 years watching my work be attributed to someone else. 12 years of my innovations, my breakthroughs, my intellectual property being claimed by a man who could not have explained the code if his life depended on it." The room was absolutely silent. "That will not happen to any of you, not if I can help it. In this class, you will learn to protect your work as fiercely as you create it. You will document everything. You will timestamp everything. You will build a paper trail so thorough that no one can ever erase your contributions." She smiled, and it was the smile of a woman who had learned hard lessons and was determined to spare others the same pain. "Now, let us talk about pattern recognition." The semester flew by faster than Vivian expected. She threw herself into teaching with the same intensity she had once brought to her research. Office hours that stretched for hours as students brought her their questions, their concerns, their ideas. Late nights reviewing papers and providing feedback that was thorough, encouraging, and occasionally brutal when brutality was what they needed. Her students responded with a devotion that surprised her. They formed study groups around her class. They cited her work in their own research. They came to her with problems that had nothing to do with computational linguistics, trusting her judgment on everything from career decisions to relationship troubles. "Dr. Mercer, can I ask you something personal?" Vivian looked up from her desk to find Priya Sharma, the graduate student she had met on her first day, standing in her office doorway. "Of course. Come in." Priya settled into the chair across from her, fidgeting with the edge of her notebook. "How did you know when it was time to leave?" "Your husband, I mean. How did you know the relationship was not worth saving anymore?" Vivian set down her pen, giving the question the consideration it deserved. "That is a complicated question. I know. I am sorry. I should not have asked." "No, it is a fair question, and I think you are asking because you need to hear the answer." Priya nodded, tears threatening at the edges of her eyes. Vivian was quiet for a moment, thinking about how to explain something that had taken her years to understand. I think I knew for a long time before I admitted it to myself. There were signs everywhere, the way he dismissed my ideas, the way he took credit for my work, the way he made me feel smaller every single day. She leaned forward, meeting Priya's eyes, but I did not leave because of the affair, or even because of the intellectual property theft. I left because I finally realized that staying was killing me, not physically, but the person I was meant to be. She was dying a little more every day, and I had to choose between saving my marriage and saving myself, and you chose yourself. I chose myself, for the first time in 12 years, and it was the hardest thing I have ever done, but also the most important. Priya wiped her eyes. I think I need to choose myself too. Then that is what you should do. Vivian reached across the desk and took her hand. And whatever happens next, you are not alone. You have people who believe in you, including me. The invitation arrived in her campus mailbox 3 months after she started teaching. Vivian stared at the thick cream envelope with the TED logo embossed in red. Inside was a formal request for her to deliver a talk at the main conference in Vancouver. Topic of your choosing. The letter read, "We believe your story and expertise would resonate deeply with our audience." She almost threw it away. Public speaking had never been her strength. The press conference after filing her lawsuit had been terrifying, even with Margot beside her. But then she thought about Priya, about all the other women in tech who had been erased, minimized, stolen from, about the stories that never got told because the women involved did not have the documentation or the resources to fight back. She picked up her phone and called her sister. "Renata, I need your help. I'm going to give a TED Talk." 3 months later, Vivian stood backstage at the Vancouver Convention Center, listening to the murmur of 3,000 people waiting to hear her speak. Her hands were shaking. Her mouth was dry. Every instinct told her to run. "You are going to be amazing." She turned to find Renata beside her, wearing the same fierce expression of support she had worn throughout the entire ordeal. "What if I freeze? What if I forget everything? Then you will remember why you are here." Renata took her hands. "You are here for every woman who has ever been made to feel invisible, every person whose work was stolen, every voice that was silenced. You are speaking for all of them. No pressure then." Renata laughed. "You have faced down a billionaire CEO who tried to destroy you. You can handle a bunch of tech enthusiasts in uncomfortable chairs." The stage manager appeared at her elbow. "Dr. Mercer, you are on in 2 minutes." Vivian took a deep breath, squared her shoulders, and walked toward the light. The stage was enormous. The audience stretched back into darkness, faces illuminated by the glow of their devices. The red circle on the floor felt like a target. But when Vivian opened her mouth, something strange happened. The fear disappeared. "I want to tell you about the most dangerous word in the English language." She paused, letting the silence build. "The word is supportive." A ripple of confusion moved through the audience. For 12 years, I was told that my role was to be supportive. Support my husband's career, support his vision, support his success. And I believed that was noble, that stepping back so someone else could step forward was the right thing to do. She moved across the stage, finding her rhythm. But here is what no one tells you about being supportive. It is often code for being invisible. It is often an excuse for erasure. And it is almost always applied to women in ways it is never applied to men. She talked for 18 minutes about her algorithm, about her marriage, about the systematic theft of her intellectual property and the years of manipulation that made it possible. But mostly, she talked about patterns, the patterns of behavior that allow brilliant women to be pushed into the background, the patterns of language that minimize female contributions, the patterns of power that make it so easy for men to take credit for work they did not do. And she talked about how to break those patterns. Document everything, she said. Build relationships with people who will vouch for your contributions. Never let anyone convince you that your ideas are less valuable because of who you are. She looked out at the audience, finding the faces of young women scattered throughout the crowd. And most importantly, never forget that being supportive and being successful are not mutually exclusive. You can lift others up without pushing yourself down. You can be generous without being invisible. You can love someone and still demand that they see your worth. She paused, gathering herself for her final words. I lost 12 years of my life to someone who convinced me that my role was to fade into the background. I will spend the rest of my life making sure that never happens to anyone else." The applause was deafening. The video went viral within hours. 10 million views in the first week, 50 million by the end of the month. Vivian's inbox exploded with messages from women around the world. Scientists whose research had been stolen, executives whose ideas had been claimed by male colleagues, artists whose work had been appropriated without credit. Story after story of erasure and invisibility. Story after story of women who had seen themselves in her words and felt for the first time that they were not alone. She tried to respond to as many as she could. Late nights at her computer, typing messages of encouragement and solidarity, connecting women with lawyers who could help them fight back, building a network of survivors who supported each other. It was exhausting and exhilarating, and exactly what she was meant to be doing. The Mercer Foundation launched 6 months after the TED Talk. Vivian used a significant portion of her settlement to fund it. Legal resources for women fighting intellectual property theft, mentorship programs connecting young women in STEM with established professionals, educational initiatives about documentation and self-protection. She hired a small staff of dedicated advocates, women who had their own stories of erasure and were determined to prevent others from experiencing the same fate. The foundation grew faster than she expected. Donations poured in from supporters who had seen her talk. Corporations signed on as sponsors, eager to associate themselves with her message. Within a year, they were helping hundreds of women protect their work and fight for recognition. But the impact that meant the most to Vivian was personal. A young engineer whose boss had tried to patent her invention, stopped by the foundation's legal team. A researcher whose colleague had submitted her paper under his own name, reputation restored through documented evidence. A graduate student whose advisor had stolen her dissertation work, case settled with full acknowledgement of her contributions. Each victory felt like redemption, not just for those women, but for the version of herself who had suffered in silence for so long. I have to pause here because this is where the story takes an unexpected turn. Vivian had rebuilt her career. She had found her voice. She had created something that was helping women around the world. But there was still one thing missing. One wound that had not healed. One conversation that needed to happen before she could truly move forward. If you are invested in this story, hit that like button right now and drop a comment telling me what you think should happen next. Should Vivian agree to see Marcus again? Or should she close that chapter forever? Let us keep going. The letter arrived on a Tuesday morning in April. Vivian recognized the handwriting immediately. The precise, elegant script that Marcus had always been so proud of. The cream-colored stationery that probably cost more than most people's grocery bills. She almost threw it away without reading it. But something stopped her. Curiosity, maybe. Or the need for closure that she had been avoiding for over a year. She opened the envelope. "Vivian, I know I have no right to ask anything of you. I know I have caused you pain that apologies cannot repair. But I am asking anyway. I would like to meet with you. Not to defend myself or to ask for forgiveness. Just to say some things that I should have said a long time ago. If you are willing, I will come to wherever you choose. On your terms. On your schedule. I understand if you never want to see me again. But I hope you will give me this one chance. Marcus." Vivian stared at the letter for a long time. Her first instinct was to refuse. She had spent a year rebuilding her life, finding her voice, becoming the person she was meant to be. Why would she risk that by reopening old wounds? But another part of her, the part that still remembered the young man who had brought her coffee at 2 in the morning and promised to build an empire with her, that part wondered if closure might be worth a risk. She called Renata. Absolutely not. Her sister's response was immediate and emphatic. "You do not owe him anything. Not a meeting, not an explanation, not even acknowledgement that he exists. I know I do not owe him anything, but maybe I owe myself closure." Closure? Renata's voice was skeptical. What kind of closure can he possibly offer? He stole 12 years of your life. He tried to destroy your reputation. He was going to have you declared mentally incompetent so you could not fight back. I know what he did. Then why would you even consider seeing him? Vivian was quiet for a moment, trying to articulate something she did not fully understand herself. "Because I am still angry, and I do not want to be angry anymore. I want to be free of him. Really free. Not just legally or professionally, emotionally free. And you think seeing him will do that? I think avoiding him has not worked. Every time his name comes up, every time I see a headline about the company, every time someone asks about my marriage, I feel that anger again. Like he still has power over me. Renata sighed. Fine, but you are meeting him in public, somewhere with lots of witnesses, and I'm going to be nearby in case anything happens. You think he is going to attack me in a coffee shop? I think he is a man who tried to erase you from existence. I am not taking any chances. They met at a cafe near the MIT campus. Neutral territory. Vivian arrived early, choosing a table near the window where the afternoon light was bright and unforgiving. She saw Marcus before he saw her. He looked different, older than his 44 years. The stress of the past year had taken its toll. His hair was more gray than dark now. The confident stride that used to announce his presence had become something smaller, more hesitant. He spotted her and walked over, his expression uncertain in a way she had never seen during their marriage. Vivian, thank you for agreeing to see me. I almost did not. I know. He sat down across from her, keeping his hands visible on the table as if to show he meant no harm. I would not have blamed you if you refused. A waitress appeared to take their order. Coffee, for both. Black. When she left, the silence stretched between them like a held breath. You said you wanted to tell me something. Vivian kept her voice neutral. So tell me. Marcus nodded slowly, gathering his thoughts. I have been in therapy. It was one of the conditions of avoiding criminal charges, but I would have done it anyway. I have spent the past year trying to understand how I became the person who did those things to you. And what have you learned? That I was afraid. He met her eyes, and she saw something there she had not expected. Genuine vulnerability. From the very beginning, I was terrified. Terrified that everyone would realize you were the brilliant one, not me. Vivian felt something shift in her chest. She had expected excuses, deflections, the same manipulative charm that had fooled her for so many years. She had not expected honesty. I looked at you, and I saw everything I was not. Marcus continued. The natural talent, the intuitive understanding, the ability to see patterns that were invisible to everyone else. And instead of celebrating that, instead of being grateful that someone so brilliant wanted to build a life with me, I tried to bury it, to claim it for myself, to make your genius mine. Why? Because I was not enough. He said it simply, without self-pity. I knew I was not enough, and I could not bear for the world to know it too. So, you stole from me instead. I told myself it was not stealing, that we were partners, that your success was our success. But that was a lie. I knew it was a lie even when I was telling it. I just did not want to face what that made me. The waitress returned with their coffee. Vivian wrapped her hands around the warm cup, using the heat to ground herself. What about Diana? She asked. Was she part of the plan from the beginning? Marcus shook his head. Diana was a symptom, not a cause. By the time she arrived, I had already been erasing you for years. She was just someone who saw me the way I wanted to see myself. Brilliant, powerful, in control. It was easier to be with someone who believed lies than to be with someone who knew the truth. Someone who knew you were a fraud. Yes, he did not flinch from the word. Someone who knew I was a fraud. Vivian studied him, looking for any sign of manipulation, any hint that this was just another performance designed to get something from her. But all she saw was a man who had finally stopped pretending. What do you want from me, Marcus? She asked. Absolution, forgiveness, a chance to feel better about yourself. No. He shook his head firmly. I do not deserve any of those things. I just wanted to say that I am sorry, genuinely, for the algorithm, for the affair, for the years of making you feel invisible, for telling Diana you were more supportive than substantive when you were always the most substantive person in any room. Vivian felt tears threatening, not for him exactly, but for the years she had lost, the potential she had buried, the woman she might have become if she had trusted herself instead of his version of their story. I accept your apology, she said finally, but accepting is not forgiving. I do not know if I will ever be able to forgive you for what you did. I understand. And it does not change anything. The settlement stands. My work is recognized. Your role in the theft is public record. I know. Then what was the point of this meeting? Marcus was quiet for a moment. I wanted you to know that I see you now. Really see you. The woman I should have seen all along. I wanted you to know that what I said to Diana that night was the opposite of the truth. You were always the brightest mind in every room. I just could not admit it because it would have meant admitting what I was not. Vivian felt something loosen in her chest, something she had been carrying for longer than she realized. She thought about all the nights she had lain awake, replaying his words. More supportive than substantive, not exactly the brightest mind, each phrase a knife that had cut deeper than any physical wound. And now here he was, taking it all back, admitting that the cruelty had been a reflection of his own inadequacy, not hers. It did not erase the pain. Nothing could erase 12 years of manipulation and erasure, but it helped, more than she had expected. I am proud of you, Marcus said quietly. What you have done with your life since we separated. The teaching, the foundation, the talk that everyone is sharing. This is who you were always meant to be. This is who I always was. Vivian corrected him. You just could not see it, or did not want to. He nodded, accepting the correction. You are right. You were always extraordinary. I just convinced you to hide it so I could pretend to be something I was not. The conversation continued for another hour. Not reconciliation, not friendship, but something like closure. Marcus told her about his therapy, about the difficult work of confronting his own failures, about the company, which had been restructured under new leadership. Her contributions finally acknowledged in the official history. He asked about her work, her students, her foundation. He seemed genuinely interested, genuinely proud, in a way that he never had been during their marriage. When they finally stood to leave, he paused at the door. For what it is worth, he said, I hope you find someone who deserves you, someone who can see your brilliance and celebrate it, instead of trying to diminish it. Vivian smiled. I have already found something better than that. What is that? I found myself. She walked out of the cafe and did not look back. Renata was waiting at a table across the street, pretending to read a book while keeping watch. Well, she demanded as Vivian approached. Do I need to call my lawyer? Or a hitman? Neither. Vivian sat down beside her. It was actually helpful. Helpful. Renata's eyebrows shot up. How could anything that man says be helpful? He apologized, really apologized, and he admitted that everything he said about me was a lie, that I was always the brilliant one, and he knew it, and that makes up for 12 years of abuse and theft. No, nothing makes up for that, but it helps me let go of it. I think I needed to hear him admit the truth before I could stop carrying the anger. Renata studied her face for a long moment. You look different, she said finally, lighter somehow. I feel lighter. Like I finally closed a door that has been hanging open for years. So what now? Vivian smiled. Now I go back to my life, the life I built without him, the life that has nothing to do with him anymore. She meant it. For the first time since her divorce, she felt truly free. Not free of the memories. Those would always be there. The pain of betrayal does not simply disappear because the betrayer apologizes, but free of the power those memories had over her. Free of the anger that had been simmering beneath the surface of every interaction, free of the need for his validation or acknowledgement. Marcus Ashford was part of her past, an important part, a painful part, but he was not part of her future, and that was the greatest freedom of all. The faculty reception was not the kind of event Vivian usually enjoyed. Small talk with colleagues, canapes that always tasted the same, the awkward dance of academic politics and professional networking. But her department head had specifically requested her presence, something about impressing a visiting delegation from Cambridge. So here she was, holding a glass of wine she had no intention of drinking, and pretending to be fascinated by a conversation about grant funding. Excuse me, I could not help but overhear your earlier comment about ethical frameworks in artificial intelligence. Vivian turned to find a man she did not recognize. Tall, with warm brown eyes and the kind of rumpled appearance that suggested he cared more about ideas than appearances. His accent was British, his smile genuine rather than performative. I am sorry, she said. I do not think we have met. Gabriel Wright, Philosophy Department, Cambridge, not here. I am part of the visiting delegation. Dr. Mercer, Computational Linguistics. I know who you are. He said it without the starstruck quality she had become accustomed to since her story went public. I read your paper on ethical implications of pattern recognition last month. Fascinating approach to the intersection of technical capability and moral responsibility. Vivian felt herself relaxing slightly. This was not a conversation about her divorce or her settlement or her famous TED Talk. This was a conversation about ideas. You are a philosopher who reads computer science journals. I'm a philosopher who believes that the most important ethical questions of our time are emerging from technology. And I'm trying to understand enough about the technical side to engage meaningfully with those questions. What kind of ethical questions? Gabriel's eyes lit up with the enthusiasm of someone who genuinely loved his subject. The big ones. How do we ensure that artificial intelligence reflects human values when we cannot even agree on what those values are? How do we prevent pattern recognition systems from encoding the biases of their creators? How do we maintain human agency in a world increasingly shaped by algorithmic decision-making? Those are questions I think about constantly. I suspected as much. Your paper suggested someone who is not just building systems but thinking deeply about their implications. They talked for over an hour about philosophy and technology, about the intersection of ethics and innovation, about the responsibility that comes with creating tools that shape human behavior. Gabriel asked questions with genuine curiosity, not the performative interest she had experienced so often at events like this. He challenged her assumptions without being dismissive. He offered perspectives from his own field that illuminated her work in new ways. It was the most stimulating conversation she had had in months. When the reception finally wound down, Gabriel handed her his card. "I would very much like to continue this conversation," he said. "I am in Boston for another week. Perhaps we could have dinner." Vivian looked at the card, then back at his face. Open, intelligent, without any of the calculating assessment she had learned to recognize in Marcus. "I would like that." They had dinner the next evening at a small Italian restaurant in the North End. The conversation picked up exactly where it had left off, flowing easily between professional topics and personal ones. Gabriel told her about his work on consciousness and moral agency, about his divorce 3 years ago, amicable but sad, about his 2 daughters who lived with their mother in London and whom he missed terribly when he was traveling. Vivian found herself telling him things she had not shared with anyone outside her family. Not the public story of her divorce, but the private pain of losing herself in someone else's expectations. The slow erosion of identity that had happened so gradually she had not recognized it until she was almost gone. "That is what I find most devastating about your story," Gabriel said. "Not the theft of intellectual property, though that is certainly terrible, but the theft of self, the systematic diminishment of who you were." "I let it happen," Vivian said. "That is the part I still struggle with. I chose to step back. I chose to accept his version of my contributions. I chose to become invisible. You were manipulated by someone you trusted." Gabriel reached across the table and touched her hand gently. "That is not a character flaw. That is a consequence of loving someone who did not deserve your love. I should have seen it sooner. Perhaps. But we rarely see clearly when we are in the middle of something. Hindsight offers a clarity that the present moment simply does not allow." "That sounds like something a philosopher would say." Gabriel laughed. "Occupational hazard. I apologize. Do not apologize." Vivian smiled. "It is actually comforting to hear someone articulate the things I've been trying to understand about my own experience." Their relationship developed slowly over the following months. Long distance at first, with Gabriel in Cambridge and Vivian in Boston. Phone calls that stretched for hours. Video chats where they discussed everything from philosophy to favorite films. Visits whenever their schedules allowed. It was different from anything Vivian had experienced before. Gabriel was not threatened by her intelligence. He was attracted to it. He asked about her research with genuine interest. He read her papers and offered thoughtful feedback. He celebrated her successes without any hint of resentment or competition. With Marcus, I always felt like I needed to be less so he could be more. Vivian told Renata during one of their regular dinners. With Gabriel, being fully myself seems to be exactly what he wants. That is how it should be. Renata said, "That is what you always deserved. I know that now. It just took me a long time to believe it." The relationship had its challenges. The distance was difficult. Their schedules were demanding. The trauma of Vivian's past sometimes surfaced in unexpected ways, making her question Gabriel's motives even when he had given her no reason to doubt. But he was patient with her fears, understanding of her need for independence, willing to move at whatever pace she needed. And slowly, carefully, Vivian began to trust again. 1 year after her birthday confrontation with Marcus, Vivian accepted a position at Cambridge University. It was a difficult decision. She loved MIT, loved her students, loved the foundation she had built in Boston, but the opportunity at Cambridge was extraordinary. A chance to lead a groundbreaking research initiative in artificial intelligence ethics, to build something entirely new at the intersection of technology and philosophy, and yes, to be closer to Gabriel. Her last lecture at MIT was standing room only. Students and colleagues filled every available space, many of them in tears as she delivered her final words. "I came to this place as a broken woman trying to remember who she was," she said, looking out at the faces that had become so dear to her. "You helped me find her again. Every question you asked, every challenge you raised, every moment you trusted me with your education and your futures. You helped me become the teacher I was meant to be." She paused, gathering herself. "I am not saying goodbye. I am saying thank you for giving me the chance to matter again, for reminding me that my contributions have value, for being the reason I wake up every morning excited to do this work." The applause lasted for 5 full minutes. Cambridge was everything Vivian had hoped for, and more. The research initiative drew brilliant minds from around the world: philosophers, computer scientists, ethicists, engineers, all of them working together to address the most pressing questions of artificial intelligence in the modern age. Vivian led the team with the same intensity she brought to everything: long hours in the lab, passionate debates about methodology and approach, breakthroughs that made headlines and setbacks that forced them to rethink their assumptions. Her memoir came out in the spring, Invisible No More, a raw, honest account of her journey from erased wife to recognized innovator. It spent 12 weeks on the bestseller list and generated thousands of messages from readers who saw their own stories in her words. The speaking requests multiplied. Conferences around the world wanted her to share her message. Universities invited her to address their graduates. Organizations fighting for equity in tech sought her as an advisor and advocate. And through it all, Gabriel was beside her, supporting her work without trying to control it, celebrating her successes without needing to claim any credit, loving her in a way that enhanced who she was rather than diminishing it. They married on a warm October afternoon, exactly 3 years after the birthday that had changed everything. The ceremony was small, held in the garden of their cottage outside Cambridge. Just family and close friends. Renata stood as Vivian's maid of honor, crying throughout the entire ceremony despite her insistence that she never cried at weddings. When Gabriel took her hands and spoke his vows, Vivian felt something she had not experienced in over a decade: complete peace. This was not a partnership built on deception or convenience. This was not a marriage where one person had to shrink so the other could grow. This was 2 complete individuals choosing to build a life together while remaining fully themselves. "I promise to always see you clearly," Gabriel said, "to celebrate your brilliance without ever trying to claim it as my own, to be your partner in every sense of the word. And I promise to let myself be seen," Vivian replied, "to trust you with the parts of myself I used to hide, to believe that I am worthy of being loved exactly as I am." They kissed as the sun set over the English countryside, and Vivian felt the last remnants of her old life finally released their grip on her heart. The photograph sat on her desk in Cambridge, facing her chair so she could see it whenever she looked up from her work. It showed her at a conference in Stockholm, accepting an award for innovation in computational linguistics. Her research team stood behind her, applauding. In the audience, she could make out faces: Renata, wiping tears; Gabriel, beaming with pride; Priya Sharma, now a professor herself at Stanford; and scattered throughout the crowd, young women in the field, the next generation of brilliant minds who would never have to fight the same battles she had fought. That was her real legacy, not algorithms or awards, people, possibilities. Doors opened so others could walk through. October 14th arrived again, her 43rd birthday. Gabriel had planned a small dinner party at their cottage. Her sister flew in from Boston. Her closest colleagues came. The students she had mentored over the years sent video messages from around the world. At midnight, when the guests had gone and the house was quiet, Vivian sat on the back porch looking up at the stars. "You are thinking," Gabriel said, joining her with 2 glasses of wine. "Always. Anything you want to share. Just reflecting." on where I was 3 years ago, on where I am now, on how different everything has become. Gabriel settled into the chair beside her. Any regrets? Vivian thought about the question seriously, about the years of pain and the months of battle, about the divorce that had shattered her and the healing that had rebuilt her, about Marcus and Diana and the algorithm and the lawsuit and the TED Talk and the foundation and the teaching and the research and this new life that she had built from the ashes of the old one. No regrets, she said finally. If I could go back and change things, maybe I would leave sooner. Maybe I would speak up earlier. Maybe I would document everything from the very beginning. But all of it led you here. All of it led me here. And here is exactly where I want to be. They sat together in comfortable silence, watching the stars wheel overhead. Vivian thought about the woman who had received that dismissive text message 3 years ago. The woman who had driven to her husband's office not knowing that her whole life was about to change. The woman who had been so lost, so diminished, so convinced that she was less than she actually was. That woman was still part of her. The scars from those years would never fully disappear. But they had become evidence of survival rather than badges of defeat. Proof that she had been through the fire and emerged stronger. "Happy birthday," Gabriel said softly. Vivian smiled. "It really is. If this story touched your heart, I need you to do something for me right now. First, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss another story from this channel. Second, share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Maybe someone who has been made to feel invisible. Someone whose contributions have been overlooked. Someone who needs to be reminded that it is never too late to reclaim their power. Third, drop a comment below and tell me what this story meant to you. Did you see yourself in Vivian's journey? Have you ever had to rebuild your life after discovering you had been living in someone else's shadow? I read every single comment, and I want to hear your story. Remember what Vivian learned. The greatest gift is not something someone else gives you. Sometimes the greatest gift is something you finally give yourself. Permission to be extraordinary. The world will try to make you small. People will try to claim your contributions. Voices will tell you that you are less than you are. But those voices are lying. They are speaking from their own fear, their own inadequacy, their own desperate need to feel bigger by making you feel smaller. Do not let them win. Document your work. Protect your intellectual property. Build relationships with people who see your worth and celebrate it. And never, ever let anyone convince you that being supportive means being invisible. You have brilliance inside you. Ideas that matter. Contributions that deserve recognition. Do not let anyone steal them. Do not let anyone erase them. Do not let anyone convince you that your role is to fade into the background while someone else takes the spotlight. The world needs what you have to offer, and you deserve to be seen. This has been Billionaire Love Stories with Mr. Brad. Thank you for watching. Thank you for engaging. And thank you for believing that stories like Vivian's matter. I will see you in the next video. Until then, know your worth. Protect your work, and never let anyone dim your light.